When your ex moves on so quickly after a breakup, it is devastating, especially if you were not prepared and you wanted to stay in the relationship. I know, because I've been there. After 6 years of being together, about 5 of those living together and being engaged, he decided it was over after we had just gotten into therapy, and we only spent about a month or 2 months in therapy. Really just enough to get to know the therapist and explain what was going on. Now, obviously we were in therapy because we were having problems and we had tried therapy before, so this was a new therapist and I was hopeful that this was going to be the one to sort things out. I figured, okay, the last one wasn't so great. This was the one. So I was coming into therapy excited. I was coming in like, okay, somebody's going to help us find relief. We're going to have the tools we need and we're going to get this relationship back on track to where it needs to be. My ex, though, had different ideas and he was ready to end this relationship and he was digging his heels in, and that was it. No matter how much I tried to convince him, no matter how much I tried to change and try to show him that things were different, that this was going to be the way forward, he was not with it. As I said, we had been living together and he had already been coming home late from work, but he started coming home later and later and then stopping communication and sometimes just not coming home at all. What I was doing was totally freaking out and panicking and trying to figure out, well, why is he not coming home? Where is he going? What can I do to change this? What can I do to stop this? How can I get us into therapy and get him participating, because he started not going to therapy too. We had entered into therapy in September of that year, and while this was all going on, I was freaking out. I was trying to get support from friends. I was reading books. I was trying to go online and understand the dynamics of what was happening. I was emailing my therapist. Anything to stop this from happening, but it was happening. Autumn was approaching and September moved into October. October rolled into November and he was coming home less and less frequently and communicating less and less with me. We were getting closer and closer to the holidays in the United States and we had a number of things planned, not just for the holidays, but in general, and this lack of communication was making it really hard to figure out, like, what was I gonna do? Was I gonna go alone? Thanksgiving came and I didn't have any contact with him. I don't know what he did. And then Christmas came around and I didn't have any contact with him and I didn't know what was going on. All I know was that it was now winter. I was cold and I was lonely. The few times that he did come home, he would leave things behind and I was a little suspicious and I was snooping around to figure out what was going on, and I would find clues that maybe he was with somebody else or he went to a dinner or he went somewhere that you would go when you are single. So time rolled on and we got through January, February, March, in the winter and the snow here in New York, and I finally got to a point after seeing all these clues in therapy that I was like, what's the deal here? Are you dating someone? Now, just to keep all the facts straight here, this was one thing that I had requested during this time we were in therapy that not happen, that he not go out and date somebody. So his answer was maybe, and we all know what maybe is. This sent me into a tailspin. I was heartbroken, I was freaking out, and I just couldn't understand how could he move on so fast while I was still dealing with all of this. Now, don't get me wrong, I wanted to know this information, but this was hard to take in. I mean, 6 years together. It's been a couple of years and I've had time to think it through and figure out what happened and why he was able to move on so quickly, so let me share some of that with you. Now, what I didn't share with you at the beginning of telling you this story is everything that happened prior to getting in with that therapist that we were seeing in September of that year. And what had happened before that was that he had cheated on me multiple times and he had told me that he wanted to break up with me a few different times, even with an older therapist. And I always insisted that we stay together and we try to work things out. Now, let me just be clear. When I say I insisted that we stay together, there was no coercion. There was no forcing him to do anything. We had these discussions with the therapist in the room, so that's what we did. We stayed together. But the message that I wasn't hearing through all of this, through his actions, was that he was not in this relationship. He was moving away. The intimacy was becoming less and less and less over the years. And I, being the person who I am, who's optimistic, who thinks that there's a solution for every problem, who thinks that relationships can work out between anybody, I tried to make it work. So I wasn't hearing that he wasn't really there. I wasn't paying attention to that he wasn't on board with that idea. Now, everybody's situation is different, so I can't speak to you or your situation, but for my situation, I questioned, was it that he was losing interest over time and losing intimacy over time, or was it that he was never intimate to begin with and that I was invested in this relationship where he never got invested in it? And if you ask me today, that's how he was able to move on so quickly, because he was never fully bonded to me, or the bond slowly withered away over the years. When you look backwards, do you see the same kind of pattern that happened with your ex? I'd love to hear about it. Leave me a comment down below.